ranking every hero and a lot of tier 5, some tier 4s, some tier 3s, all of that jazz. Not going to rank every single tower because that'll take us forever, and a lot of them have poppage rather than support, so that a majority of them would go in F tier anyway. So starting off, we have Admiral Brickle. I believe Admiral Brickle is very selective when it comes to their means of support, but for the towers in which they can provide support, she is very useful with naval tactics and being able to cover the rear with her sea mines, so not land mines. So I believe she goes in the C tier category. Very selective though. You would not normally choose Admiral for any game. You would pair her with either a Buccaneer or a Submarine to Megapops. Adora, I would believe the only usage for Adora is to sacrifice towers, but then you would have other means of removing excess towers in the field in which you would help you out throughout the game in order to get to the initial tower in which you want to perform 2 Megapops with a support Chinook, which is why Adora goes at E. Not completely useless. Like I say, F is completely useless, E is almost completely useless, D is okay, C has some usage but very selective, B is getting up there, A is very good, and S is you won't be able to complete a 2 Megapops without one of these. Benjamin, the same thing with Adora, a very selective use. You would only really use Benjamin in a Chimps run for 2 Megapops sakes if it comes to removing any means of balloons which would otherwise stop your tower from being able to go through a round with his siphon ability, but unfortunately it's only for a limited bit of time. So let's say if you have a wizard monkey and you want to downgrade purple balloons, you're not always going to be able to do that for all of the time which a purple balloon is out, which is why Benjamin is at E tier. Not completely useless, but not a first choice. Captain Churchill, useless, very offensive hero, doesn't provide any supportive means. Etienne, D tier, mainly because of camo detection. Etienne is a hero that you would put down later on throughout the game. Otherwise, if you get Etienne to level 20, then Etienne will be able to permanently attack balloons. Azili has some usage as well alongside Etienne, sorry. If it was just for the fact that Azili can stop regrows from regrowing, then Azili would be an E. Or the fact that if they only prevent, if they can enable purple balloons to be popped with energy or plasma based attacks, then Azili would be E. But because Azili's Heartstop ability has both of those things where they can prevent regrowth from happening, and purples now have the weakness of the energy and the plasma time, Azili, I think if you place very far away from the track and don't use their Moab Hex ability, Azili can be quite a useful supporting tower to put down. Now, Geraldo S tier, I don't need to explain it, but I'm going to do it anyway. So many little items which can help you out. Lead pots with Jerry's fire, invisibility potion when it comes to camo balloons, little road spikes in case you don't want to provide camo detection for that one particular tower for round 24 and you don't have any means of popping camo balloons at that given point in time. Pickles for increasing the power per projectile by 1 but minusing their attack speed, obviously. Genie's bottle, very useful for around 100 if you feel like the bad is going to be too much. There's so many things that Geraldo has, which, and also creepy idols as well, but not very good for regrows because it can encourage a regrow farm. Gwendolyn, another E tier tower. I would say the only benefit that Gwendolyn would have for support is enabling towers to be able to pop leads, but then by that point of the game you would have an MIB up anyway, so why would you put Gwen down for that one particular purpose? So I would say Gwen is E. Oben also E. I would say slightly more useful than Gwendolyn, slightly more useful than these other towers, mainly if you're going for like a druid to Megapops, but then you would have something like Geraldo for support, just to be honest. Pat Butsy is a B. Number 1, Patsy has very short range, therefore it's very difficult for them to be able to pop any balloons on the track. Mainly it's Mervs you have to watch out for, but the extremely short range is both a blessing and a curse, because You could rely on Pat in order to slap back Moab class balloons if you're having trouble with them. But then at the same time, you don't want him to attack balloons because you want Pat for rallying roar. And also the benefit that Pat can be spawned on water as well. Sai, I would say Sai is incredibly late game support in order to use their Psychic Blast to stun balloons, but then by the incredibly late game, you would have stuff like Balloon Sabos and Absolute Zero and Glue Storm to slow down or stun balloons. So that's why Sai is an E, not completely useless, but definitely not up there at all. Quincy uses kind of the same thing as Churchill, only provides attack, Whip being able to benefit crossbow masters and crossbows alike. Sorter, another thing, F tier, yes, I know ISOB would roast me for putting Sorter in F tier, but this is the wrong kind of tier list for Sorter to be in. But I say all heroes are included in this. Striker Jones, I would say the same tier as Admiral Brickle, very selective when it comes to their support for particular towers, but if you're going for, let's say, a bomb 2 Megapops or a artillery 2 Megapops, then Striker Jones is a very helpful supporting tower to be able to both enable the abilities to come back just a little bit quicker, that one-time usage, but also most recently in Update 39, it enables the artillery cursor to follow the mouse. But most importantly, it enables explosives to be able to pop black and zebra balloons. Now then, we're going to be going out of the heroes because we are now done with the heroes and we're going to go towards regular towers. So both of these are going to be in D tiers mainly because of their ability to be able to enhance Dark Monkeys, as long as they're not like top path or middle path majority. So not going for Juggernaut or Crossbow Master or anything like that. So the only reason why I put these in D tier rather than, let's say, E tier is because they're incredibly important when it comes to, let's say, a Super Monkey Fan Club 2 Megapops, a Plasma Monkey Fan Club 2 Megapops, or even like a Base Dart 2 Megapops, Triple Darts 2 Megapops. They're both very useful in order to enhance that towers' offensive capabilities, both their power and their speed, but mainly their speed, I believe. So, Moab Eliminator. The reason why I put this at B tier because this is a very good round 100 tower. If you're looking for bad damage, then the Moab Eliminator is a very good tower in order to whittle down its health. Moab Assassin, the predecessor of the Eliminator, not as useful, but if you really want to have a little bit more control behind the damage, so let's say if you're going for a 2 Megapops with a tower that isn't quite fair when it comes to bad damage, but it is kind of useful, but you don't want a tower to be able to help you out too much and take away too many pops, then 2 or 3 Moab Assassins could be quite useful. So I wouldn't say it's as useful as the Eliminator, but it's definitely useful in its own ways. The Balloon... the predecessor of Balloon Crush. The only reason why this is here is because it can stun balloons, but it's also quite powerful per projectile, so that is why I put this at E tier rather than anywhere else. And Balloon Crush, I've not put it on this list because it's too expensive, and you would go after that if that was your 2 Megapops containing tower. So, Embrittlement is a very good bad tower to put down, so when I say like that, it's very good in your fight against the bad. It enables more damage with the intended 2 Megapops tower. And the same with Super Brittle, but I wouldn't say it's as useful because it is more expensive. Bear in mind, I'm looking at these with their price in mind as well. So you could say, well, hold on a minute. Super Brittle is definitely more useful than Embrittlement when it comes to their supporting needs. But I'd say yes, that is good, but it's also their cost as well. Embrittlement is far more accessible than Super Brittle because Super Brittle is 6 times more expensive. Now, Snowstorm, I would say, is our first of the A category. I don't know why it's over here. Why am I putting this over here? I don't know why, but it's definitely there because it is incredibly useful in order to slow down ceramics. But the next one, I would say, is a tower in which if you don't have this one down or any other S tiers, then you won't be able to prevail in a 2 Megapops run. Absolute Zero also slows down Moab class balloons, and it is a very cheap tower to get. And for a very cheap tower, that is why it is in S tier. We have next the Relentless Glue. Before, I think it's either 35 or 36. Relentless Glue, you would just stick to the Moab Glue, but because of the stunned balloons that it can provide, so let's say if a balloon that's been glued by this Relentless Glue gunner is then pops, it enables nearby balloons, to be stunned, which is why I think this is an incredibly useful tower to have. It could even be an S tier, to be honest. Next one, Glue Storm. This is a bit of a double-edged sword because not only does it provide +2 attack to your intending to Megapops tower, but it also provides that benefit to other towers which you don't want it to be able to pop. So therefore, Glue Storm is fantastic, but it can bite you in the back if you're not careful and if you provide other towers on the field. So let's say if the Absolute Zero is very close to other things, then this will be able to leech off quite a few pops when combined with the Glue Storm. Let's see, these next two towers, I put them down here. Their only niche is to be able to either stun Moabs and or stun and be able to have bonus damage inflicted upon it. But the only reason why these are down here is because they do high damage anyway. So that is why you wouldn't typically go after either of these towers, but they are an option, but I would say only for, let's say, against the bad. But then again, against the bad, you would only ever go up to tier 5 because tier 4 is kind of useless. Okay, submarines. We have of all of these run again. We have a first strike capability, a very, very good tower to use against the bad. The only reason why it's not in S tier is because not all maps have the means of having water, so therefore you don't have the means of always being able to plop down a first strike capability on a map like, let's say, Dark Path. But the 300 I'd say is close to S tier, but again the only reason why it's not S tier because of the fact that not all maps have water on them. But an incredibly useful tower to have down early game, so you're getting money towards the intended tower that you want to get to Megapops with, but you can't initially place it down because you've only got 650 to start off with. Two very good things about this tower. Number one, it can submerge itself and not do any damage against the balloons. Number two, it can decamouflage balloons. Now, if you pursue bottom path of it, it enables it to be able to decamouflage balloons faster. But either cross path is good, and with some cases you want to go middle path because of your early lack of being able to pop lead balloons. So either cross path is viable with the submergible, and I'd say it is the best decamoufying tower that there is out there. Does not get any pops once you submerge it. The next two, I would say, Plutonium Reactor and Energizer. These are both more niche. The Energizer is slightly more useful for one particular reason, and that is it can level up heroes faster, and also is just a buff from the Plutonium Reactor. The reason why you have a Plutonium Reactor down is to be able to decrease the ability recharge time for your naval-based tower. So let's say if you have a carrier flagship, but then again, not useful for that, Pirate Lord, or your what's it called, the successor of the first strike capability. I'm actually drawing a blank now as to what that is called, but you know what I mean. It can decrease the ability recharge time for that, and also Admiral Brickle as well. A very good pairing with Admiral Brickle, you will be able to place down more mega mines. So that is why this is only down in D and this one C. Both again very niche usages, but what they do provide for those towers is incredibly useful. Next up we have the Moab Shove. Now, before it has a missile added to it, I would say it'd be B, because it would provide very minimal means of being able to damage the balloons. So therefore, you can park it in the far corner once you're done with it. But because of a missile and its unlimited range, I would say it can take away too many pops. So that's why it's in C. Very useful for shoving balloons back. It's more useful when combined with middle path, because middle path it enables the shove to be better. I'd say Downdraft is B because it doesn't have too many offensive capabilities. And if you're really struggling to blow the balloons back, then a blowback helicopter is incredibly useful in that way. Support Chinook is incredibly useful if you want to move certain towers out of the way. So let's say if you are intending to pop balloons very early on in the game, but you don't want those towers to continue popping, you would have the support Chinook in order to move those out of the way. Or for strategic usages for your 2 Megapops intended tower, you use the support Chinook in order to move that tower about, and then go about your way with wherever it is on the map that you want to place down that 2 Megapops tower. Now, the only reason why I put the Mortar Monkey here, the base Mortar Monkey, is to be able to provide lead pops to your intended mean, and because of the fact that the Mortar Monkey can only fire where the cursor is, depending on it, then you can move it out of the way as soon as you are done with it, and because of the fact that it's quite cheap, therefore you would not think that you would be spending too much money because of that factor. Shimmer, D tier, similar purpose towards some motor support when it comes to decamoufying balloons, but I would honestly avoid getting Shimmer altogether because of the fact that it can take away too many pops. But if you're looking for a means of decamoufying balloons, then Shimmer is an option. But I would say either, like with Geraldo, just put down a set of spikes at the end of the track, or just if you have the tower itself and it can pop camos by default, then obviously you wouldn't use it. So a very niche usage, more useful for any of the E towers, but I would say use something else. Now, Balloon Sabo. The only drawback with Balloon Sabo is the fact that it cannot slow down children balloons. So let's say if you have a 0MG, you pop into BFBs, those BFBs will go at normal speed. But the Balloon Sabo is an incredible supporting tower. It doesn't have too much attack range, and you can place it far away so that it cannot get any pops whatsoever. And having the ability to be able to slow down the balloon speed by half is an incredibly useful tower to have. I would say avoid the Grand Saboteur, and I would say probably the only usage for it is round 100 for being able to reduce the amount of health of the bad. So use it when all of the balloons have summoned on round 99, so that when round 100 can occur, you know that the bad's health will be able to be trickled down. But it's another one of those towers which is incredibly niche, and I wouldn't advise using, because you can have something, let's say, with a Spike Storm, which is something which we'll be touching on later on. Stronger Stimulant and Permanent Brew are both very useful. The only reason why I didn't put Permanent Brew in S tier is because of its price tag. Yes, it's a much better version than the Stronger Stimulant, but you don't have that 64,800 monkey money price tag to worry about. So that is the only reason why it's not in S tier, because of its price tag. Let's see. Pop Lust. Only very useful when it comes to a 2 Megapops with a Druid Monkey. So that's why it's in D tier. Very helpful for what it can provide to Druids, but because of the fact that it can only provide it to Druids, which is why it's in D tier. The Spike Factory, a definite S tier. It is not too expensive, and it is a fantastic means of being able to provide that damage towards the bad on round 100. And it's something that you can also place very far away, not on the track, but also it's something that you can place on the track if you are looking for those default spikes to be able to damage the bad, rather than just the ability itself to damage the bad, depending on what you want to use it for. Jungle Drums and Primary Training down at B. Permanent attack speed boost is very useful, and the niche usage of Primary Train is obviously to be able to enhance the attack range, the attack pierce, and the attack projectile speed of all primary towers under it. I would say Primary Mentoring, however, and it's a great synergy with Gluestorm and Absolute Zero, is to provide additional range towards attack, but also be able to reduce the cooldown on all abilities of a primary tower, which is why it's a step above the Primary Training, because of that little factor. It could be the difference between a victory and a defeat. As I said, pairs very well with any primary supporting tower. Both of these are in S tier. A temporary means of both attack speed and attack pierce is something incredible. Call to arms is wonderful, and homeland defense, despite the fact that it's 43,200, quite expensive, having an extra 100% attack speed and attack pierce is such a useful set of things to be able to put down, which is why they are both in S tier. Yes, you could say that, well, this is a permanent means and this is only a temporary means, but you have an extra plus 20k in comparison to permanent brew. Now, this next one I would say is arguably the most useful supporting tower when it comes to 2 Megapops, the overclock. The means to be able to temporarily increase the attack speed of a selected tower dramatically is so useful. I would say that the only use that it doesn't have is with Spirit of the Forest, because the majority of the time you get your damage from the vines that grows on the track. But with every other 2 Megapops you are going for, the overclock is hands down one of the, or if not the best supporting tower that there is. Now, Ultra Boost on the other hand, the only reason why it's not in S tier, because of its 77,600 price tag. Yes, it is more useful than the overclock, but here's another thing about the Ultra Boost that makes it not as good. You can only use it 3 times around, and sometimes it's only 2 because you used overclock within the round in which you upgraded the overclock to Ultra Boost, but because of the game thinking that you've already used it, therefore if it's a long round, you can only use Ultra Boost 2 times on that round. Not very practical whatsoever. You would only really use it for a very cheap tower, let's say with Super Maelstrom or Ultra Juggernaut, and any of that shape. Also, Sentry Champion as well is very viable because you can summon more little sentries. But that is my 2 Megapops supporting tower tier list. Obviously, this can also be summed up as subjective upon the individual. But as somebody who has now played like 2 Megapop scenarios for a little bit of time, not a long time, but a little bit of time, I would say that this is definitely my tier list of this sort of stuff. Like, you could actually prop up Relentless Glue to S tier. Like, that is definitely a very viable place to put it. Both the slow speed of Moabs and the stuns on the balloons, which I actually forgot to mention, actually, it slows down Moabs. Like this, you could say it's S tier, but I'm happy to have it down at A tier anyways, because you can rely on just absolute zero and the balloon saber slowing down the balloons, and then use that money for something else, or be able to get that intended upgrade. But for goodness sakes, Geraldo is probably the most OP supporting, like Geraldo alongside Overclock, and you've got your defensive and offensive means covered. Defensive as in being able to pop a balloon, and offensive as in your permanent attack speed. Because of the factor that Overclock only targets the tower which you have selected its ability upon, that makes it much more viable than Call to Arms and the Homeland Defense. But this is only attack speed, whereas this is both attack speed and attack pierce, which is why they're both in S tier. If it's just attack speed, then obviously they'll both be bumped down to A, and this would actually probably be B because of its price tag. But let me know what you think. What tiers would you put all of these other towers in? I wouldn't put stuff like Ultra Juggernaut at all, because of the fact that, well, Ultra Juggernaut or Comanche Commander or anything along those lines is both too powerful as support, and they don't provide any supportive means. Like, you could say Comanche Defense and Comanche Commander could technically be called support because they both provide the same means as Moab Shove, but Moab Shove is less powerful, which is why it's here. If it didn't have the missile on it, definitely B tier. Without a question or shadow of it. Because it has its missile from any range of a map, it definitely downgrades it because it could be the difference between being able to get 2 Megapops and not whatsoever. But let me know if I missed out a tower. What tower did I miss out at any given point in time that could have been useful in any way, shape or form? I don't think so. I've looked for all of the towers, and like all of the towers that I'm missing out on are ones that only provides offensive means, which are the ones that you would use for the 2 Megapops in the first place. But there are certain towers I would never use, like E or F. I would never use them as a supportive means, because there are other towers from S to D which can do that. D obviously being the least useful, but provides some means, like with the Super Monkey and the Plasma Monkey fan clubs respectively. They're both incredibly niche. Actually, you know what, in some ways I would have put Plutonium Reactor at C, because then it doesn't like attack balloons if it doesn't have any contact with the track. But Energizer is definitely the path to go if you are actually going down Plutonium Reactor anyways, because it can provide benefits towards all your naval abilities and level up heroes faster, which is definitely very good with Admiral Brickle. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you thought of this video. Please like the video and comment if you have not done so already, and also subscribe if you have not done so already. And let me know what other kind of tier list you like to see me do in the future. I'm thinking about doing one for 2 Megapops in general, S being the easiest, F being the most difficult, and also like the most boring. Like there are definitely a few very monotonous towers which you can get 2 Megapops with. Thank you so much for watching, and take care of yourselves everybody.